Chapter 19.
The burden of Egypt. Behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight every one against his brother, and every one against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. And the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsel thereof. And they shall seek to the idols, and to the charmers, and to them that have familiar spirits, and to the wizards. And the Egyptians will I give over into the hand of a cruel lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them, saith the Lord of hosts. And the waters shall fail from the sea, and the river shall be wasted and dried up. And they shall turn the rivers far away, and the brooks of defense shall be emptied and dried up. The reeds and flags shall wither. The paper reeds by the brooks, by the mouth of the brooks, and everything sown by the brooks shall wither, be driven away, and be no more. The fishers also shall mourn, and all they that cast angle into the brook shall lament.
Chapter 19.
The burden of Egypt. Behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst.
Well, this is the Ancient Worlds Gallery at the Manchester Museum. There are all sorts of Egyptian artefacts here, including this little chap. Now, he was made around 1800 BC in honour of the god Osiris, the Egyptian god of the afterlife. Now, he's been in the museum for 80 years, but in recent times, he's not been behaving himself, because despite being in this sealed case, he's been spinning round and round. Don't believe me? Well, Anna is from the museum. When did you notice it was moving?
It was more than a month ago, actually, and at the stage that we realised that the statuette was moving around, we installed a stop-motion camera in the case, which has produced a video which is now on YouTube, over 200,000 hits in just a few days.
So it appears to be moving, but sure, there must be is it the cabinet? It's moving as people walk past it.
Well, there are several ideas as to what's going on, actually. The cabinet itself is attached to the wall. So is it a visitor footfall coming through the gallery? Is it the visitors making vibrations? Is it the road outside? Or is it something more mysterious, which perhaps is associated with Egyptian spiritual thought?
And what do you think it is?
I believe it's something more than simply kinetic energy or a physical reason. The ancient Egyptians made their statues so that they were a second home for the spirit of the deceased if the mummy was to be damaged or destroyed. And so what's to say that the spirit of this individual, Nebsenu, hasn't re-entered the statue, and that's what's causing it to move?
And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight every one against his brother, and every one against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. And the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsel thereof. And they shall seek to the idols, and to the charmers, and to them that have familiar spirits, and to the wizards. And the Egyptians will I give over into the hand of a cruel lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them, saith the Lord of hosts.
Violent protests erupting in Egypt after President Mohamed Morsi grants himself new powers. Tens of thousands clashing on the streets over the move, some burning offices of Morsi's group, the Muslim Brotherhood, a spokesman for the president, calling the expansion, quote, temporary. But former CIA operative Wayne Simmons is not buying it. Wayne is on the phone. Thanks for joining us, sir.
It's a pleasure, Brenda.
So what does this mean? Is this basically has he turned himself into a dictator overnight? And we really, violence is not just in Gaza now, it's erupting elsewhere. How dangerous is this making the region?
Well, that makes the region, as dangerous as it already was, even more dangerous. What we have is exactly what I said many times in the past, and my military colleagues knew that once the Muslim Brotherhood had seized control, and that's exactly what they've done through Morsi, through Mohammed Morsi. I mean, this was a no-brainer. We knew. I mean, he has virtually stolen not only the Constitution, he has thrown out the Parliament, he has thrown out which they do not have now, and so the poor Egyptians are saying, oh, everything was going to be great, it was going to be wonderful. Morsi came in and took over, and now look what we have. So this is a very, very dangerous situation.
Well, you know, Ambassador Susan Rice on the 21st praised President Morsi for security efforts. Did she speak too soon?
Well, she seems to have a habit of doing that. And what I would say to you is that this would not happen. All of these things that are taking place in the Middle East, and this is not a political statement, this is a statement of fact. These volatile situations that have taken place in Libya and Syria and of course Egypt, we've thrown out guys that are questionable. We got that. We understand that. But what we've done is allowed the Muslim Brotherhood now to complete their caliphate. This is exactly what they promised they were going to do, and they have done it. And now the Egyptian people will be without a constitution. They will be without a Supreme Court. They will be without anyone who can control who some are calling the new pharaoh. I mean, when people go that far, it's just absolutely a remarkable, bold move that this guy did.
Well, you know, we give a lot of money to Egypt. I think Egypt is the second biggest recipient of bilateral aid from the United States, second only to Israel.
Correct.
And we're considering releasing some emergency funds now. What does that do to giving this man more money?
Well, what it does is it tells the world, and it certainly tells the Egyptian people, that this new president, that the second-term president that we have in President Obama, is going to continue to support the Muslim Brotherhood. And that is exactly what is happening, and there can be no other explanation.
All right.
If there were, Brenda, we just cut it off. We tell them, no, you can't do that. There will be no aid unless you rescind these orders.
All
and
right.
that's not happening.
A minute-by-minute situation. We'll be watching it. Former CIA operative Wayne Simmons joining us. Thank you so much, sir.
Always a pleasure.
And the waters shall fail from the sea, and the river shall be wasted and dried up. And they shall turn the rivers far away, and the brooks of defense shall be emptied and dried up. The reeds and flags shall wither. The paper reeds by the brooks, by the mouth of the brooks, and everything sown by the brooks shall wither, be driven away, and be no more. The fishers also shall mourn, and all they that cast angle into the brooks shall lament, and they that spread nets upon the waters shall languish.
Canals that used to be the lifeblood of the Egyptian countryside have become toxic rubbish dumps. The refuse breeds rats, and the rats breed disease, yet still more rubbish is thrown in.
The people of Abu Sir, they actually know 100% it's a big problem, but unfortunately we have no governmental solving the problem. So try to tell the people, please don't push your garbage here. But where? We have no another place for that big problem, unfortunately.
There are no regular rubbish collections in Abu Sir, so local landowners are paying contractors to clean the canal, a public service that normally they would expect the authorities to provide. What we can't convey to you is the absolute stench and squalor that people are living in. The smell is something between rotting flesh, rancid vegetables and excrements. And kids are playing in this. It's hardly surprising that people are getting sick. Trees are dying too. Instead of a healthy crop of mangoes, there are only dead leaves. Farmers complain that irrigation water is diverted before it reaches the village.
All I can do is wait for water. I use what I can on my trees, hoping they'll bear fruit. The only other option is the well, but that is far away, and the water is salty.
Running water is a luxury here. Women have to collect it, as they do in remote villages. But we're only an hour away from the center of Cairo.
On the long side, the sewage system should be supplied to the village. On the long side, I don't think within months or within years, because you know, more than 90% of our villages suffers from lack of sewage systems. Although all our villages now have clean water.
Abu Sir tells a story of infrastructure stretched to breaking point, a population that continues growing and resources that can't keep up. It's a crisis that won't be resolved overnight. Jackie Rowland, Al Jazeera, in Abu Sir on the outskirts of Cairo.